It's really hard to pitch why long tail keywords matter so much. So they're really unique in that sense because I talk to a lot of clients, and a lot of the times they're really aiming for top of funnel keywords that drive traffic. And then they ask the question of why aren't we converting? And I think in the age of AI too, long tail keywords are going to become even more important because they are more personalized. So I think it makes a lot of bottom of funnel content more important, but I think it just makes content more important than ever. Like having good content that has a point of view that is accurate is going to be the guiding tool for most customers on how to buy or how to use a certain thing. I'm putting in a lot more questions as headings, and I think there's a lot more emphasis on how-to guides and things like that, depending on what your audience is. I think with any sort of content, it's meeting your customer where they are. Leads aren't a guaranteed outcome. So that's another conversation that needs to be had with clients, because you can't just set their expectations with, oh, you'll get 10% more leads. That's not how it goes. I don't love impressions. I think that's a vanity metric in my eyes.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Search with Candour. Welcome to 2026. And I am your host, Jack Chambers Ward, as always, and this is the podcast where I interview the best and brightest minds across SEO and digital marketing. This week I am joined by Nicole Lee. Nicole and I talk all about some pretty hot topics, some long tail keywords, some bottom of funnel content strategies, and also programmatic SEO and how to scale your content as well. It's a really interesting conversation because long tail keywords is something we've covered on the show before, but Nicole brings a really interesting angle, combining that with the programmatic side of things, and discusses how she has used her content strategies and actually the whole kind of concept of programmatic SEO and automation, and really focusing on high intent long tail keywords as a successful strategy for her previous clients and companies she's worked for in-house as well. So stay tuned for that conversation with Nicole in a couple of minutes after this ad, and I will see you on the other side. If you've ever been through a website build project, you probably know the panic. You spend months designing something beautiful, approving layouts, writing copy, and then right at the end, someone asks, wait, what about the SEO? That is exactly the scenario you want to avoid, because if you try to bolt on SEO at the end, you face the cost of things like rebuilding code or tanking the migration entirely. And that's why you need to talk to the team at Candour. You might know them from their popular podcast, Search with Candour. I mean, you probably do since you're listening to this or watching this right now. But they are also a search-first design and build agency. They don't treat search as an afterthought. It's baked in from day one. Moving to a new site isn't just a design change, it's also a data change. One wrong move with your front-end code, your redirects, or your site architecture, and you don't just lose traffic, you lose revenue. And you can wipe out years of Google trust overnight. Thankfully, Candour has renowned SEO experts who work right alongside their designers and developers to prevent that from happening. They help you avoid those nightmare migration pitfalls and, very importantly, find new opportunities for growth that other agencies miss. If you want a site that ranks as good as it looks and keeps your hard-earned traffic safe, go to withcandour.co.uk. That's withcandour.co.uk. Most great websites don't get found. Ours do. My guest this week is a senior marketing manager with over 7 years of experience in content, product marketing, and SEO. She's been featured on podcasts such as Content Briefly and featured in publications like Partnero and Marketer Interview. She enjoys training for marathons, hiking in mountains, live comedy, and, thank God for us, marketing podcasts as well, and is the growth lead at Daydream. Welcome to Search with Candour, Nicole Lee.
Hey, thank you so much. What an intro. Yeah, when you put that list like that, I'm like, oh, I'm doing a lot, but like this past week, I was literally just like sleeping in. So
You're allowed to sleep in as well, mate. You don't have to be busy 24/7. That is allowed.
yeah, I just moved to San Francisco. Officially, I've been like flying in and out. And it was really gloomy on Sunday, so I took the opportunity to sleep in. I didn't feel like doing anything.
San Francisco is one of those cities I've always wanted to visit, so I'm a little bit envious of you living there. How's it going so far? How's the move? Before we get into our topic.
Yeah, it's going really well. I think it's an exciting city to be in, especially if you're in tech or like marketing in tech. I think a lot of people mistake tech for, as an industry for just engineers or software engineers and all of that. But like there's so many functions in a tech company. And when I'm in San Francisco, it's like one of the few cities that I see a lot of tech advertisements and like the billboards and everything. So I'm like very much in the center of it. And this sounds really cheesy, but I think it feels like anything is possible when I'm in San Francisco. And it's pretty much the center of where a lot of things are being built technology wise. So I think it's really exciting place to be, especially with the whole AI revolution and all of that. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I'm glad to be here. But yeah, I do miss like the views in Canada where I was living in Vancouver. The mountains were always there. So that's something that I'm getting used to. I run outside and I'm like, oh, this is different.
I know there are big like hills in San Francisco. There's the infamous kind of hills and stuff in San Francisco.
Oh God.
Is there much hiking and stuff? I guess there must be nature out there as well, right?
There's
Out in California.
there's nature too. I just think it's a little further from the city than Vancouver.
Mm.
Vancouver is like right at your doorstep. But yeah, I've been trying to dodge the hills. I run, but I run on flat land. So it's been a bit of a change when I see a hill, I try to walk down 2 to 3 blocks to avoid it and see whether I can cut around it. So that's been my own little game, walking around San Francisco.
Nice. I love that kind of. I always find that we have a similar kind of thing here in Norwich, where the rest of the county is mostly countryside and stuff like that, and you go a few minutes out of the city and you're straight into fields and farms and stuff. We have almost zero hills and mountains here. It's like the flattest county in the UK.
Yeah.
So there aren't many hills I need to dodge, but yeah, plenty of countryside around here for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. It sounds really peaceful.
Yeah, I feel like it is. Like I grew up in the countryside in a tiny little village, so I very much feel like a country boy living in the city sometimes. But I've lived in the city long enough now as an adult. It feels like I'm kind of a city person now as well. Finally.
Awesome. Best of both worlds.
But anyway, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's not talk anymore about San Francisco or Norwich or anything like that. You brought a really interesting topic for us to talk about, and it's a topic that has kind of been touched on a couple of times on the show before, specifically the long tail keyword side of things. And we're also going to tie it into your experience with product marketing and programmatic SEO as well, which I think really adds a nice spin to what so many of us who have talked about long tail keywords and that bottom of funnel kind of approach to content strategies, adding those extra bits in there. I know your experience in both product and programmatic, I think, is really interesting. And I kind of want to hand it over to you, Nicole, of like why you think this topic is interesting. Why should people be thinking about this approach in 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, I personally think it's very interesting because when you're outside of the SEO world, it's really hard to pitch why long tail keywords matter so much. So they're really unique in that sense because I talk to a lot of clients, and a lot of the times they're really aiming for top of funnel keywords that drive traffic, and then they ask the question of why aren't we converting? So the answer is because they're not aiming for these long tail keywords that are more bottom of funnel. And I think in the age of AI too, long tail keywords are going to become even more important because they are more personalized. So, and high intent as well. I think that's the key thing, very high intent. And they're just going to become more important. And I think a lot of clients or businesses are going to see that and feel that. And they're going to wonder, oh, how do we do this? So yeah, I thought it was a good topic to kind of like raise.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I don't know if you know this contact, Nicole, but we, the developers here at Candour, built Also Asked, which gives you access to people Also Asked data and stuff like that from Google. So we have been talking about the kind of long tail keywords for quite a while here,
Yeah,
and I think you're totally right. That kind of clear intent, high conversion kind of approach is a big topic we need to talk about when it comes to the conversational shift we're seeing in the kind of queries we're seeing in AI search and ChatGPT search and AI mode and all that kind of stuff. I guess when you're thinking about those kind of keywords, because again, there's plenty of different ways to find them, right? I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later as well. When you're looking for those kind of things, how are you telling, I guess, which ones have that clear search intent, which ones have those kind of ready to convert, for want of a better phrase, kind of approaches? Because I think there is also plenty of fluff in there as well, right? There's plenty of people just asking weird, random questions that might not actually lead anywhere.
definitely. Yeah, you see those weird questions that has like 0 to 10 search volume on Ahrefs. And yeah, sometimes you're like, should we really be answering that? But yeah, no, the shortcut is obviously to use tools like Ahrefs to kind of see what your customers are searching. I usually try to put myself in the customer's shoes. A lot of like the competitor versus competitor, or your brand versus competitor, or brand versus similar-ish kind of, not competitor, but in, kind of a similar realm, but they are, I guess, an audience competitor or a content competitor. So that's where my mind usually goes to first. And then really, yeah, putting myself in those shoes and asking other questions that might be informational, but still leads to a customer going further down the funnel. The other two approaches I take is really following up closely with the sales team. So that's like a product marketing kind of approach, and listening in on sales calls to see what our customers are saying and using that language. And a lot of product marketing too, we're doing a lot of customer research. So during that process as well, keeping an eye on what they're saying, what features they're looking for, what's making the platform work for them and what isn't, things like that. That's all really helpful information, even to use for comparison pages that will be aimed at long tail keywords. So it's a whole machine. I think product marketing has a really exciting opportunity to use SEO to the function's advantage, and this is definitely one of the strongest case for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting bringing that product side of it. I think of what a lot of people maybe take for granted is the kind of traditional approach to search, right? Where you, like you said, you kind of start at the top of the funnel and they go and do the research and they come down, eventually hit a bottom funnel, convert, hopefully turn into a customer, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, the messy middle has been a thing for a while, and I think that's gotten even more crazy and messy. And I've quoted the number many, many times on the podcast before, but the classic, you need to see a brand or interact with a brand 9 times before you convert kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that number now is closer to like 50 rather than 9 or something like that, according to some studies.
Yeah, which makes the
Does
middle
that
very
kind
top
of
of
thing...
funnel, I feel. So it's
Absolutely,
like,
yeah, yeah. It almost makes the very top heavy kind of funnel, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
so it's like,
yeah.
do you even bother with the middle because it's becoming so thin? Like those are kind of questions that I have, because I tend to, as a content marketer, I feel like I've focused a lot of like top of funnel stuff more so, and that trickles down a little to middle. And then as a product marketer, I think you're dealing with a lot more bottom of funnel. So I think that's going to be a very interesting shift too when it comes to AI, because what's informational versus transactional, but also personalized.
Yeah, definitely. I think that transactional versus informational thing, I think, is a huge question when it comes to AI search and the LLM powered stuff that we've seen increase so much over the last 12 months, right? And I think when it comes to that top of funnel kind of researchy stage, fewer people will be clicking through to websites. This is pretty clear data already we've seen from things like AI overviews, and that's only going to be exacerbated as AI mode becomes the, I think, correct me if I'm wrong if you disagree here, Nicole, I think it will be more integrated into the traditional search of Google the longer it's around. And that's going to have a massive effect on people basically doing research, for want of a phrase, on the SERPs, right? In
Yeah.
that interface, rather than actually clicking through to your informational blog post, or your informational pillar content, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I find that we need to be thinking about those exactly as you said there, how to balance that informational with the transactional side of things. Because I feel like the conversation of LLM traffic is higher intent or higher converting in theory because the research has already been done, again, in theory.
Yeah.
So how do you take that approach to kind of balancing the two? If you're thinking of, those landing pages have got to be converting, but people are already coming in with that knowledge, they're coming in with that research, maybe they've already done the kind of that top of funnel stuff. Does that then make, as you said earlier, that kind of bottom of funnel stuff even more valuable and essential now with that kind of approach to search?
I think so. I think it makes a lot of bottom of funnel content more important, but I think it just makes content more important than ever. Like having good content that has a point of view that is accurate is going to be, yeah, like the guiding tool for most customers on how to buy or how to use a certain thing. So yeah, I think that's a gold mine that we're sitting on. I kind of like go back and forth with the AI overviews too. I think AI overviews serve a purpose where, as humans, we want information really quickly right now. And that's where all the LLMs come into. I think that's one function that it's serving, but I've also heard of people just not trusting the citations. So in my mind too, the difference is maybe also citation optimization. So when it comes to creating content, that I feel is kind of the main difference between what SEO is becoming and what it was. What are kind of your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that ties a lot into the way we search, right? I think you're totally right when it comes to AI overviews. I have seen many non-SEOs get frustrated with it being wrong. And obviously, I know we're kind of biased working in content marketing and SEO.
Mhm.
We're so hyper focused on that one's wrong, that one's wrong. But like, are people in the real world noticing this kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
And from the other side of it, exactly as you said there, because we want information as quickly as possible, it's kind of a thing. And I know our marketing director here, Mark Williams Cook, has talked a lot about when a particular query needs grounding, or when a particular query is going to be essentially a solved query or an unsolved query. If you're asking somebody's height or a celebrity's age or how tall is this particular landmark or whatever, that's going to get an AI. It's been had featured snippets for the last 10 years. It's going to be an AI overview, right? You're just going to get an answer.
Yep.
When it's things that can change, and exactly as you said there, Nicole, opinions, comparisons,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff, the personal side of things, the personalization side of things, that's when it matters to, like you said, get that information correct. And for me, I think a lot of us had kind of gotten into the habit of just like listing all the pros of your
Mhm.
product and then just leaving it at that kind of thing. And I think being open and honest about what your product can and can't do
Yeah.
is more important than ever. I know Google have talked about that in their EEAT guidelines as well.
Yeah.
For me, I think that, again, as a fairly discerning consumer, I guess, I see that as positive. Like if somebody is happy to talk about their cons, that actually shows confidence in a way, right? In your product, in your
Yeah.
service, rather than just like, we're the best and you should buy from us. It's like, yeah, we're really good and you should use us for this thing.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for this, don't use us. And I was like, I appreciate the honesty. That's an interesting way of putting it. And I think, like you said, when you get those brand versus brand or blah, 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 alternatives or versus or anything
Mhm.
like that, that comparative stuff, which has been just a gold mine, I guess, for so many product content marketing strategies, right?
Yeah.
Comparing yourself to all of your competitors and comparing yourself to all the different options. I think a lot of that is going to happen again in those SERPs, in that AI interface, for want of a better phrase. And I'm fascinated to see how, we talk so much about brand in 2025 as well, right? How that perception of your product and services and brand is affected by your own comparisons, your own kind of versions of that. And being honest, I think, is the way forward, right? Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like it when a brand is honest because I think that also builds trust. And that's very hard to build with an audience. Everything that we do in marketing is to build trust. But even then, a lot of people don't trust marketing, when a lot of people say like, oh, it's just marketing. So that makes our job hard in that sense, but also really exciting. And yeah, it's really exciting if you can change people's minds, right? So I think that's what's really important too. And in the age of AI, a lot of things are going to become more personalized. I think even with how you write those pros and cons, like that has to be more natural language as well, just, how people would speak. So I think that's an interesting like change that content is going through.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the advent of conversational search, I'm afraid, obviously there was the whole voice search is going to take over about 10 years ago when all the smart speakers started arriving. And sorry, everybody listening at home. Okay, Google, da 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 da. Hey Siri, da da da. Sorry, I'm triggering everyone's phones right now, but that kind of thing, we all assumed, some people did, that voice search would be the next big thing.
Yeah.
This
I
is kind of voice search, right? It feels a little bit voice searchy to me.
Yeah. I don't use as much voice search though on a personal like in my personal life. I guess I'm like too embarrassed to ask what I'm asking sometimes. Like where can I find this? And so I just still
But
type.
well, yeah, but that's the thing, right? I think it's less. That's why I use the term conversational
Yeah.
search, I guess. And that's kind of like the reframing we're having now, because people are now asking those kind of questions, exactly as you said,
Yeah.
in a natural language way. You would never type 5 years ago, you would never type into Google,
Yeah.
so I'm a 35-year-old vegetarian who is looking for restaurants and da 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 da. You would put vegetarian restaurant London.
Yes.
Like you would like best vegetarian restaurant London, whatever, like 5 words maximum. Whereas now, exactly as you're saying there, we use that natural language process. And I think you're spot on, mate. It has to influence the kind of content and the kind of wording that we're using from our content perspective as well, because it's going to reflect the kind of things that people are searching for. And that's where so many of those long tail keywords, the bottom of funnel stuff, I think becomes so important. Do you think that ties more into the personalization side of things, as well as potentially SERPs get more and more personalized as well? If you're tailoring to those kind of queries, that seems to tie well into the personalization side of things as well. Hopefully, maybe future proofing, but hopefully.
Yeah. Definitely. I see it going that way. I'd place bets on it just because I think that's the one way Google can really make their money, right? So I think that's going to be a very big thing in content search and product marketing, all the three realms and how you reach your customers in general.
Yeah, definitely. With that kind of, I guess, personalization and the AI mode and the ChatGPT search stuff, has that influenced the way you're thinking about those kind of queries? You mentioned a great resource, I think, is those sales conversations, right? And that is an example of that natural language kind of side of things. I
Yeah.
guess, how do you balance that kind of thing? Like you said, pulling a question from Ahrefs or from directly from Google or whatever kind of source, and also real human beings. Do you have a way of kind of balancing and weighting those two approaches? Are they now kind of more similar or less similar than they were a few years ago?
I think it's changed a little bit as I listen to more like sales conversations or how our customers are speaking. I tend to prioritize those words over um, the data on Ahrefs because that's like my first party data essentially, right? That's like the primary
Yeah.
data that I'm getting, whereas I'm not sure where or how delayed the Ahrefs data could be. So to be really up to date and whatnot, I'm looking at our customers instead and really taking what they're saying into the content. I feel like what's happening now has changed how I structure content as well. I'm putting in a lot more questions as headings, and I think there's a lot more like emphasis on how-to guides and things like that, depending on what your audience is. But just from the sales conversations I've been having, those seem to strike out a lot. So I think where you see like I guess like how you build content on right now is like for me a mix of like what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing on Google versus just what I'm seeing on Google. And yeah,
Yeah.
just the structure too. Like I just touched a bit on like citation optimization. And that's also another thing that I'm including into what I'm researching when I'm creating a piece. So what's ranking on Google, whether that's like a listicle, a how-to guide, what's ranking on these LLMs, and which LLMs do we want to appear in? What are kind of like the top 5 citations and why are they there? What is it that the LLMs took from that content? And the sales conversations too, just what questions are being asked, how do we tie it all together so that it's a very structured, readable piece of content.
Yeah, I think that structure and tying it all together is the magic there, right? I think you can have all the data in the world, but if you're not making it feel like it, like we said, natural and feel like it is tied together properly, I have seen so many examples of here is a product page and then there's just 500 FAQs at the bottom and they're just like everything and just chuck everything at the bottom of a page
Yeah.
and not really think about exactly as you said there, the different intents, the different approaches, the different kind of questions, the different audiences that might be asking there.
Yeah.
You and I work in a similar side of the industry, but we have very different approaches. We have a very different background, very different living, many time zones apart, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And in theory, we would search for some things in a similar way, and we would also search for things in very different ways.
Exactly.
And for me, I think, like you said, understanding your audience and when you can get first party data like customer data, that is always so juicy. And I remember having a conversation with Renee Bigelow a few months ago, and she was using an approach of like tokenizing customer
Mm-hmm.
questions and actually, for want of a better phrase, getting the keywords and getting the queries out of that side of things. And exactly as you were saying there, kind of cross-referencing and understanding what actually kind of connects to each other. Like, oh, this customer talked about I don't know, the speed of this thing, whereas this question says, how fast does this thing go? I'm like, that's kind of the same thing. We're doing 2 birds of 1 stone here.
Yeah.
Do you have that kind of similar approach where you're tying those things together and kind of, I don't know, categorizing those keywords? It's that next kind of stage of keyword research, I guess, is that categorization and tying it all together.
Yeah, I think even in product marketing, it's like deciding what category you're in when like some categories might be similar and how do you trickle down that to content that you create as well is an interesting question. But yeah, I think overall it's like an art and science to me. Like you have the data, you make what you want out of it and take it with a grain of salt and see what's useful and you see what other references you have and also take what you want from it and mash them all together and hopefully you bake something great. I think that's also the funny thing about SEO. It's like it is formulaic in a way, but now we're also trying to figure out a new formula. So now that we're in this stage, it's like, oh, what's going to work? What's not going to work? I've seen so many articles of like, here's how you optimize your, content for a citation, or here's how you appear in LLMs. And I feel like there's no proven way yet. So all these articles that are coming out, it's like, oh, how? and things like that. But I'm for the opinion that like SEO isn't going away though. So having that as your basis is important. I think the pie is just getting larger. So using like traditional SEO as your foundation is a safe bet. And then layering on top of that just how to appear in AI overviews or LLMs, having that extra layer of references and gearing your content towards that, I think is kind of like that's my approach to it right now, at least.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to the programmatic side of things, and again, a lot of people have been talking about programmatic SEO for a while. I think it's a really interesting topic when it comes to this kind of long tail approach, because you have, as we said, so much data to play with. What is your kind of approach of tying those two things together? If you're going for, the scale that the programmatic side of things allows you to do, how do you tie in that kind of in-depth question answering conversational stuff and kind of combine those two things together?
Yeah, I think the question I'm always asking myself is the approach that I'm taking is, how are our customers looking for these things? Are, does, when one keyword pop up, do they look for another one? Because that might be the case for brand versus brand, right? So I'm looking at that content and seeing how similar that content might be, and whether we need to have data for each of that heading in the structure. So I think the research part is a big thing. You're trying to discover whether a programmatic approach is worthwhile. You're trying to see how in depth it needs to be too. And by worthwhile is, how many articles can you create at scale? If not, you would just do it editorially. So I think those questions pop up to my mind. I've done smaller PSEO strategies, and I've done bigger PSEO strategies too. I've done PSEO strategies with like 500 to like thousands of articles, whereas I've also done PSEO strategies that are below that, and those are considered smaller. Ultimately, I think it depends on your audience and how much they're searched. So I think that's like any it's like any SEO answer. It depends on the goals of the company, depends on the audience. There's a lot of it depends factors, but yeah, I think that's a lot of that also determines whether it should be a PSEO strategy or not, and then how it plays out as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I think you're totally right when it comes to understanding the size of your audience, the kind of questions that they're asking, how broad are those questions. We mentioned that categorization just now as well. Like, are people asking hundreds of different
Mhm.
questions, or is it kind of like 100 of a similar kind of category question, right?
Yeah.
And I think that can really, like you said, affect how, the age-old question of like, do I need a separate page for each of these questions? Like, does every question you pull out of your keyword research end up being its own page? Or, as we were saying earlier, should it sit on a product page or be its own comparison page, and all this kind of stuff? I think the programmatic side of things really allows you, like you said, to do that at scale, when you can plan out an entire site or restructure an entire site and go to that approach. And I think more and more people kind of need to be taking that approach. I feel like a lot of people are kind of getting, like, as an agency worker, like, I know, we don't necessarily have all the time in the world sometimes. I know in-house people are, you guys have a lot of restrictions for your resources as well. We're not saying you just have to restructure your site every 6 months or whatever.
Yeah.
That would be crazy. But I think there's a real value there, like you said, having a real kind of scaled approach to it. So you can, the age-old question of like, you can answer any question a customer might ask, you have an answer for, in a way.
Yeah. And I think even beyond that, it's like, do you have the infrastructure to do that too? I think a lot of people are thinking about PSEO, but it's like, okay, but how are you going to push out that content? At Daydream, we have our own platform that does that. And yeah, we can ship tons of articles by a push of a button. So I think that's the other part of like, yeah, just the content infrastructure, or SEO infrastructure, and how you can kind of like operate within that to make sure that you're hitting those deliveries, I guess.
Yeah. Do you have those kind of different KPIs or metrics going into a PSEO strategy that you would have done a few years ago? Like we were saying earlier, the kind of shift in how the value of clicks, the value of impressions, conversions, all that kind of stuff. How are you approaching those kind of KPIs and measurements of success, I guess, you have with a programmatic approach now compared to a few years ago?
Yeah, I think right now, the way I'm approaching it is because I work with a couple of clients, it depends on what their goals are. So that really determines my KPIs. I don't love impressions. I think that's a very it's a vanity metric in my eyes. But and especially if you're doing long tail, bottom of funnel um, keywords, that's not the like impressions aren't the keyword, the metric that I'm precisely looking for. That's like more of a top of funnel metric as well. So I think leads are important. Getting, demos booked or events, sign up and stuff like that are kind of more in my wheelhouse right now. But I think that's also tricky because there's a lot of pressure to hit those goals, and that's a harder goal to hit than impressions. So that's kind of the double-edged sword, I think, right here. And I've had to have conversations with clients too where, search is basically, there's three parts to search. There's visibility, and then there's also, getting to, I think the final part is leads, but the middle part too, it's like discussing with the client what that looks like. So I think that's a conversation to have. And it's also knowing that leads aren't a guaranteed outcome. So that's another conversation that needs to be had with clients, because you can't just set their expectations with like, oh, you'll get 10% more leads. That's not how it goes. But but a lot of like what the three things look like also depends on the clients. But visibility on at the top and what the lead is at the bottom is what I see as like is the most consistent. So yeah, that's how I would kind of view metrics. It all depends.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I feel like talking more about impressions in terms of visibility and stuff, but like you said, if you're going for the kind of bottle of funnel approach, then you can't really be leaning into that. Exactly as you were saying earlier, like you don't get that kind of classic top of funnel, high search volume kind of stuff. So you're not really optimizing for that impressions in the same way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've had this before, Nicole, but you get examples of, I worked with a client a few years ago that was, I want to say it was like £100,000 like minimum basically for their projects they work with clients.
Wow.
So like one conversion and lead has a
Lot.
lot of
Yeah.
value just instantaneously, because they exclusively work with like big industrial projects and stuff. So it you're always starting like, oh, we could get a handful of leads a month and
And
it
that's
would easily
enough.
pay for, exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
us as an agency doing your retainer, your entire marketing team, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of us are so used to the you've basic e-commerce stuff. If you're selling things for a few bucks or $50 or whatever it is, I find that different kind of like the value of a conversion. Like you said, it depends. We've got to say the SEO
Yeah.
catchphrase, but it's coming back to that high intent side of things as well, right? It's coming back to the way we're searching, the user behavior that has shifted over the last couple of years of people doing their research off platform, for want of a better phrase, not on websites,
Yeah.
and actually coming around and hopefully being more educated. Does that kind of thing, knowing that users are going to be a bit more educated perhaps by the end of that journey, would that affect how you approach those kind of landing pages, those kind of product pages, those kind of converting pages to, I don't know, maybe be I always think of the explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old
Yeah.
thing. And I find that stuff really patronizing.
Right.
Maybe that's just me. Sometimes you have to, because I don't know what the hell they're talking about. But I find you can often have a negative effect on a potential customer by treating them like they're a 5-year-old. It's like, yes, I know what this product is. I know what this does. I, I've worked in this industry for 20 years or whatever. Like, I know how this works. I have this example with the same client I was just talking about, funnily enough, where they worked with people who are way more knowledgeable about the subject
Yeah.
than I am. So I had to kind of tailor my approach to that. Do you think that's going to be more important going forward because of the kind of researchy kind of stages, or do you think consumers are still in a similar kind of state? It's just where the research is happening.
I think it's going to be important moving forward. I think the more educated your clients are, especially if they're in a very niche audience, that's where you kind of I think with any sort of content, and this I feel should have always been the way, if not has always been the way, is meeting your customer where they are. That's like a big thing of what product marketing also emphasizes on when we talk about the customer journey. So I think that's a really important part of it. And if they're becoming more educated, your pages have to live up to that too. And I think a lot of blog topics will also become more specialized. And I've been working with clients too where we're picking topics from the sales calls, even if they don't have any search volume, because that could drive LLM traffic as well. Like, what if another person has this question? And I think clients like that are also really happy to forego the glitzy traffic, like high traffic kind of content, and also really hone in and focus on these like high intent articles to get the leads that they want, essentially, and the clicks that they want to. I think that's usually the middle part, and yeah, it's like visibility, clicks, and then leads. But yeah, I think that's going to become more important as we enter this like new age of SEO, as they're calling it.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. We're battling over all the various initialisms of GEO and AIO and AEO and all that kind of stuff, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I agree with what you said earlier, mate. It's like it's all kind of still
It's
SEO,
still kind
right?
of the
Let's be real.
same, yeah.
Like,
It's
yeah,
just
the
layered.
fundamentals are still there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like an ogre or an onion. It's all about layers. And I think there's a wider conversation, the industry feels like it's having about this kind of conversational search stuff and about long tail and bottom of funnel kind of approaches. When it comes to the kind of really, really niche stuff, that really kind of like hyper specific things, have you experienced any kind of like surprising results? Any like I don't know. We mentioned the weird ones that sometimes pop up in the tools, right? Or, oh my God, I can't believe a customer asked that question. I could never have thought about that question. Have you ever had that kind of, I never thought that would work, and actually it was kind of brilliant kind of questions or long tail keywords those ways?
Yeah, I think like I worked with one customer where we were looking through their docs and trying to pick out topics from there. And that was actually that came out to be a really good idea because people were already going to the docs to like figure out instructions and whatnot. But some of them, like some of
Mm.
the audience also really wanted to know, I guess, more about a certain process or more about a certain topic from those docs and not just how to do it. So I think I think that was an interesting way forward. I think another PSEO strategy that I've seen, I didn't execute it or anything, but it's like being contrarian. So it's like ugly dresses or things like that for your company, which is interesting too. So trying to see the opposite of like why people would hate you rather than love you is also like another it's a funny take on it, but I've seen it happen. So that's also interesting. I think that's where the art in SEO comes in. But yeah, I think a lot of when we kind of merge SEO and product marketing, it's really interesting because you're certainly finding a lot of topics that are very high intent, and they're there in the docs or your playbooks or ebooks and all of that, and you can kind of repackage that as content for SEO. So I think that's where I like really like sitting in that like in that Venn diagram, kind of the overlap space. So
Yeah, I really like that kind of like alternative sources for that kind of stuff, because like I said, I think a lot of us talk about the tools, a lot of us talk about
Mhm.
talk to your customers, has been a big thing. Unless you're actually writing those things down, then a lot of those can go to waste. And I think, yeah, like you said, documents, handbooks, all that kind of stuff. There are so many other sources for inspiration, for keyword research, for all this kind of stuff. That's a really, really interesting idea. I'd never really thought about, internal documentation and stuff like
Yeah.
that can be a source of stuff. And I often find it from having the almost the opposite conversation with the client of, what do you think you're known for, kind of thing. The classic, like, if you type in what is this brand known for into a LLM, what comes up? Is it what you're expecting? Are you being seen as the thing that
Yeah.
is what you hope you're being seen for? Like, if I search myself, does it call me an SEO or a
Mhm.
podcaster or whatever, like that kind of thing? I find that stuff really interesting. And exactly as saying there, the counterbalance to that of almost like the clickbaity stuff.
Yeah.
You said the ugly dresses. I had
Yeah.
a client that was all about their best time of year was Christmas time, and they did like ugly Christmas sweaters,
Exactly.
and it was just nonstop that kind of stuff. And I was like, your best performing page by a mile is your ugly Christmas sweaters page.
Yeah.
So it's not one of their high, like you said, like high volume category pages or anything like that.
Yep.
It is this super specific collection page that is basically only bought at one time of year. But like, they did like 40% of their annual revenue at Christmas time.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, got the job
It was
done.
crazy.
I love ugly sweaters. To be fair, I love ugly sweaters. But
Exactly. There's the real kind of, yeah, I feel like we do a lot of the clickbaity stuff. I have been guilty of this in the past, and YouTube thumbnails and all that kind of stuff, social media stuff as well. And I wonder if that's kind of the way we're using the internet and search now, and everything kind of feels more integrated and tied together. The way we would type into LLM or the way we would talk to somebody on social media
yeah.
is closer than ever before, right? So maybe, like you said, the counterintuitive clickbaity stuff actually kind of works in a search format as well.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've seen my coworkers and how they speak to these LLMs, and I was actually like, it's so different person to person, and it's funny. It's like, hey, like, some of them are super polite, whereas like I fall into this category where I just like kind of like use it as Google still and just like search it as like, best dinner recipe for a cold, I don't know, Wednesday evening or something like that, rather than, hey, could you give me a really nice recipe for, yeah, I find like some people actually speak to it. So I think that's a really interesting, yeah, and I think different people are just going to use different language. So it's like, how do you can't hit them all at that point. You kind of do have to just focus on your persona or ideal customer and see how they speak rather than capturing it all. I think it's like capturing a big fish versus capturing thousands of small fishes. And what do you want? Essentially, your net to catch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've even seen, I can't remember the data from, apologies, listeners and viewers, the most common uses of Chat GPT, and one of them is like therapy.
Yeah.
It's like, interesting. Like, there's always the stats of like this many Chat GPT users or whatever. Like, wow, that's a real competition to Google. I'm like, not everyone is searching on this thing. Some people, like you said, are just having a conversation of,
Yeah.
how do I have this conversation with my partner, or I'm really depressed, what do I do about that? Like, all kinds of like, not necessarily searchy things, but still asking questions.
Yeah.
And I find that stuff so interesting. Like you said, you get people that are like, hello, ChatGPT, how are you?
Yeah.
I would like to find out how I can find the best vegetarian restaurant in Norwich, and da da da,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. Whereas I fall more into your category as
Yeah.
well, Nicole. I'm just like, what's the best vegetarian restaurant? Tell me as fast as possible, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. I've actually been using this app called Belly, and I've been making a lot of friends in SF through it too, which is funny. But yeah, it tells me all like the top ranked restaurants and whatnot, which is really nice. So I haven't
Mm.
even like Googled restaurants or yeah, searched restaurants since I've arrived. Belly was kind of the tool for me.
See, that's a whole other conversation. Is the like what the phrase, like the infrastructure outside of Google, right?
Yeah.
You literally just said that I haven't even
Yeah.
Googled anything. It's like, that's like a whole other optimization discussion of like, how do you rank on Belly? Like that's
And Belly's really addictive. You actually like you can
see,
improve your rank the more you use it. And you have like free invites to a few people. I can invite you, Jack. Yeah,
there we go.
the more you post, the more invites you get. I remember 2 months ago I used up my invites and I have four more now. So it's I think it's an invite only kind of network too. Sort of. I feel like I signed up for it, but if I've invited a lot of friends to it, so in that sense, it's invite only. But yeah, it's a really interesting app that the gamification I think is crazy because yeah, what you can unlock is pretty cool. And as a foodie too, you're like, oh, these are like geared towards foodies. So even though I don't
Yeah.
like the term foodie, I don't know why I just said it, but
We know what you mean.
yeah,
We know what you mean. You like good
I
food
like it.
and you care about what you put in your body. That's what matters.
Yeah,
Yeah, like optimizing, for want of a better phrase, and thinking of those kind of little closed networks within the internet, I find so interesting. There's been a big conversation about communities and stuff like
yeah,
that. Another great source of those kind of long tail keywords as well. Forums, communities, all that kind of stuff. But even thinking of something like Belly, which is a way to connect with other people and is a weird kind of word of mouthy kind of connection-y kind of thing. Invite only is fascinating. That's again a whole other kind of, I guess, like privilege to it, like a prestige to it in a way. Like that
yeah,
adds a layer there as well.
yeah,
And I find that stuff really interesting when you can find, a particular industry specific side of things that is an app or an influential thing that is happening that you can be a part of, and you can be part of that conversation for your clients as part of your content strategy as well.
yeah.
I would be fascinated to see, if there are other similar kind of things in other industries where you can kind of, the personalized recommendations kind of thing we were just talking about in LLMs
Exactly.
is also happening in so many other places.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sure plenty of viewers and listeners, like myself, have never used Belly before in their lives and are now thinking, oh, I should probably go and check that out. And I wonder if Nicole has any spare invites. Maybe I should
I
ask if
have
I could.
four. I have
I'll
four.
contact her on LinkedIn. Find out. We have more than 4 listeners, so you might get
That's
a lot
true.
of DMs in a minute.
Yeah, come get them while they're hot. But yeah, and Belly is interesting because
Exactly.
I think there's stickers around New York too of your like a restaurant listed on Belly. So that changes the whole food
Mm.
marketing or how you hear about restaurants kind of scene, I think. And because it's so recommendation heavy as well, it's like, if my friend ranks this really highly, then I'm going to go as well. That's what I found myself doing, especially if it's like a friend who I know has really similar taste to me. That's like, oh, like that's like 100% then I have to go because I think be really good. All my references are telling me that I should go. Whereas I'm usually very skeptical about restaurants too. I only go to restaurants once and then I try to like find new ones to try. It's
Mm.
really good if I go back like 3, 4 times or consistently recommend it as well. And over the years, I'll just keep going every few months. Um, because I love to cook at
That's when
home
it's
too.
really good.
Yeah, I love going I love going to the market and cooking as well. So if I can't make it at home and I'm constantly going, that's when I'm like, yeah, that restaurant's super, super good. And if I see someone who thinks in a similar vein on my Belly app and they're ranking something really high, I'm like, let's give it a go.
Yeah. A lot of this conversation, I think, so much of the conversational side of search, the kind of questions, the long tail keywords, and then back around to this kind of personalized recommendation stuff. It is marketing 101. It is like pre-internet levels of marketing in so many ways, right? Of like, what do the people around you recommend that you do? It's like, yeah, before we had the internet and we were all connected globally and you and I could have a conversation, across 8 different time zones,
Yeah.
we would have to ask the people in our lives, the family and friends, the colleagues and whatever, like, hey, have you ever been to? I saw this new restaurant open. Have you been to that yet?
Yeah.
And you would not be able to type in review of such a restaurant or whatever.
Yeah.
And that feels like a lot of, we're almost trying to kind of combat a lot of the impersonalization of the internet. I feel, in a way, it feels like more and more people are relying on those human recommendations
Yeah.
to actually find new things, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's how we met too.
Exactly. Shout out to Grace Frolic for putting us in contact.
Yeah.
Grace is awesome. And yeah, connecting things. And exactly, that's often how, you know, bumping into people at conferences or having guests on the podcast, so many people who have been on the podcast already, and Grace maybe has done that for me more than anyone else. So huge shout out to Grace.
Yeah.
Of just like, oh, you'd really enjoy speaking to this person. Oh, you should definitely talk to Nicole about product marketing. Oh, you should definitely talk to this person. Like, that's how you build that network, right? Again, it's classic old school marketing networking stuff,
Exactly.
and it still works.
Yeah. Madman style.
Exactly. But not claiming to be the Don Draper of SEO podcasting,
Yeah.
but maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. I love that.
Cool. Let's wrap things up with some recommendations, Nicole, and
Awesome.
I'll get stuck into one actionable thing you'd recommend for the viewers and listeners to start doing right now.
Yeah, I think staying curious is the key to anything, especially in SEO or marketing in general. It changes so quickly, right? And I think to be good in any field, even in like the medical field, I see my dad's a doctor, and I see him reading journals and whatnot too. So my like this the same, I guess, like the closest thing for me too is like listening to podcasts, all these like Substacks and newsletters. So and yeah, just being curious and doing it. I think once I read something, I kind of just try it out. Like all those articles that are like, you'll rank in LLMs if you do this. You don't always, by the way. I've I've tried it out, which is why I'm like, okay, stay curious and like keep doing things. I think that's important. As you said, like going to conferences, bumping into people, and learning about what they're learning. I think that's interesting. So keeping that mindset of like staying curious and that growth mindset is really important. That's the one actionable thing I think viewers and listeners can start doing at any second.
For sure. Yeah, I think stay curious is a good rule of thumb for life in general
Yeah,
as well. For sure.
exactly.
Second recommendation, a tool, piece of software, anything you think deserves a little bit more attention.
Ooh, so a tool that I really like in my personal life is Opal right now. I think it keeps me productive because it blocks all of my apps during work. And when I want to
Mhm.
look at it, it gives me a 5 second time frame to decide whether I want to continue or not continue with it. I think those 5 seconds are pretty helpful in like just, okay, actually, no, I'm going to do more work. I'm going to shut this off. So I've blocked a lot of apps through that, which is why when people ask me why I haven't replied in a few hours, I've missed messages where I'm like, maybe I should have replied earlier during lunch. Um, and I'm like, Opal said I didn't have to, so I didn't do that. I've also been using Corner Maps a lot to discover San Francisco on a more SEO or product marketing or content kind of realm. My tools are pretty vanilla, I would say. I don't know if there's a better term, but ClearScope, I love ClearScope. Ahrefs, love Ahrefs. I also use a lot of data from Google Search Console. And I think when it comes to product marketing too, I've used a lot of Jasper AI to repurpose content for different formats. Let's say it's like a product launch and repurposing it into an email, into social posts, into a post for few of the execs or staff to kind of like post in their LinkedIn too, stuff like that. So Jasper AI has been really helpful in that. And yeah, I'm currently also checking out a lot of AEO tools or GEO tools to monitor visibility and stuff like that. I think Graphite has a really long list of AEO tools out there. I listened to a podcast that featured that as well. So yeah, just like discovering, looking, seeing things, hopefully growing, staying curious.
Very, very cool. I'll put links for all of those in the show notes, folks, if you want to go and check any of those out.
Perfect.
And last but not least, recommend a video, a book, a movie, a podcast, whatever it is. What have you been enjoying recently, Nicole?
Ooh, podcasts, obviously. This podcast. Keep listening to
Thank you.
the episode. Books, I really liked reading Thinking in Bets, Making Smarter Decisions When You Don't Have All the Facts by Annie Duke. I think it is, yeah, like I studied economics as a uni student, and you're always thinking about opportunity cost. And I think in anything in life too, whether you're deciding to go with a PSEO strategy, ESEO strategy, which keyword, there is an opportunity cost. So where are you placing your bets? And even, you know, your career, which company you choose to bet on and things like that too. That's, yeah, I think this book has been really helpful in that. It talks a lot about poker, which I frankly have no idea about, but it talks it talks about it in very simple terms. So I was like, okay, I see where Annie's going with this, and I think she has a list of, she's written like pretty good books other than this too. So I'd say she's a pretty cool author. TV show, I've been enjoying The Studio. I love watching film and seeing how film gets made too. So The Studio has been really cool in that sense.
And The Studio has been the most recommended TV show to me this year.
Really?
And I don't have Apple TV, so I haven't watched a single second of it yet. And for context, I also do a movie podcast in my spare time.
Oh
So people
no!
recommend
No
that
way.
kind of stuff all the time.
Okay.
And they were like, you need to see The Studio. And I was like, I know. I will
How?
get around to it eventually. So you've nudged me again, Nicole. I will definitely have to check it out. So I've heard
Amazing.
nothing but, and obviously it won a bunch of Emmys and stuff. So I definitely need to catch up on The Studio
Yeah,
for
their
sure.
cast was crazy. Zac Efron is in it, and then
Yeah.
I think Seth Rogen too. Seth Rogen's like one of the main characters, and I feel like I haven't seen him in a lot of things lately, but he's now back on Apple TV a lot. He's in Platonic as well, and The Studio. So he's working. He's working again.
Yeah, I think Seth Rogen's one of the writers or producers as well for The Studio, I think, isn't he? He's like
Yeah.
he's part of the production team as well, I think, behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, and he's from Vancouver too. So yeah, whenever I see
Shout
stars
out.
that are Canadian, I'm like, oh, me too.
Yeah, I always love the Rogan and Goldberg kind of combinations. They do awesome, interesting stuff all over the place, even ranging from like Invincible to The Studio and all of obviously the comedies and stuff that Rogan's been in over the years. Very interesting, like eclectic career that I always appreciate.
Yeah, but yeah, the cast for The Studio is it's insane. Like, yeah, everyone's really good in it, and it's a very star-studded cast as well. So really cool, and I bet they're all passionate about film. They're in it, so I think it's cool that they're making a series about film, essentially. Yeah.
Definitely. I'll put links for everything Nicole and I have talked about in the show notes. And if people want to follow you, Nicole, they want to keep up with what you're up to in product marketing, SEO, GEO, AEO, and everything in between, how can they do that?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. If you type in Nicole Lee marketer, that's me. I went to McGill as well. So I think if you type Nicole Lee, McGill, or Daydream, where I work at now, you'll probably find it in a search bar. Those are the keywords. um, for Twitter, I am a content gal, literally at I am a content gal. And I have a website, NicoleEMF.com. But yeah, that's the places you can find me. My company, Daydreams, also the company that I work for, Daydreams, also doing a lot of cool stuff in the PSEO space. There's a lot of content on how to do that and resources for PSEO. And we're also a full SEO agency right now, and GEO. So we're doing a lot of like full funnel SEO and GEO, and you can find a lot of things there at withdaydream.com. So yeah, a lot of resources there in itself.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely put links for Daydream, your LinkedIn, your website, and everything else we mentioned. Like I said, video description, show notes, all that kind of stuff. Last thing to say is thank you so much for joining me, Nicole. It's been a long time coming, and shout out to Grace for connecting us. It's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you so much. And yeah, shout out to Grace as well for connecting us. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. It's like, yeah, just a lot of things have happened moving and whatnot. But yeah, I'm glad we made the time and that this happened.
And that wraps up this episode. Thank you once again to Nicole Lee for joining me. And thank you to you for watching, for listening, wherever you're watching or listening. And I've got a fantastic guest coming up next week. I'm interviewing Georgie Kemp from Veed. We're going to get all into videos. As you probably know from the fact that this podcast is on Spotify and YouTube in video format, I'm really into videos. I watch a lot of video content. I create a lot of video content. And Georgie, working at Veed, for those of you who don't know, which is a video editing platform and it's particularly good for like social media clips and things like that, has really, really interesting perspective on the future of search and why video content is kind of integral to a lot of your content strategies going forward. It's a great conversation, and yeah, like I said, that's coming up next week. The week after that, I will be joined once again by Mr. Mark Williams Cook. Mark and I will be talking all about the best conferences of 2025 and what we're looking forward to in 2026, as well, including our official announcement, kind of Search Knowledge XL and the date that we're planning that for. I know Mark has already said it on LinkedIn because he couldn't help himself and he got excited, but it is kind of a bit more official. We are hoping to launch very, very soon with some announcements, so stay tuned for that. We are going to be running a one-day conference here in Norwich later on in the year. I'll let you find out all the dates and stuff in a couple of weeks and some more details and stuff like that. We're speaking to speakers and sponsors and stuff like that. We've got a venue confirmed. It's all very exciting. So yeah, stay tuned for my conversation with Georgie Kemp next week. And then the following week, Mark and I are back in the studio talking about the best conferences we attended in 2025 and what we're looking forward to in terms of conferences in 2026 as well. So you can fill out your calendar with some excellent events and plan accordingly for the rest of the year. Once again, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Have a lovely week.